I've just played music, but I don't know if it actually worked. Did you guys hear anything? No, it didn't work. Okay, it doesn't work when you do that. It's okay. Next time. We're just enjoying each other's company. Um, but okay, it's 4:09 now. So I think we're okay to. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Oh, okay. We're good. I think we're good to get moving then. But I can introduce our agenda for today. Again, thank you all for hopping on the UC Divest at UCLA town hall in response to the wildfires, but particularly UCLA's response to the wildfires. Our agenda, we just did check-ins, and then um, right after the check-ins, we'll have Kai introduce Divest, including the coalition, also our campaign, and some of our demands. And then Ty will lead us through a political situation or just to level off on. Um, I'm sure we all know what's happening with the wildfires, but some of our organizations, a lot of our organizations have been finding out more and more information as time progresses from having been on the ground, um, gathering different information from folks. So we'll hear that political situation here, and then the bulk of this town hall will be the open discussion dedicated to hearing what folks' pressing issues and concerns are at this time, and also um, gathering like some input on uh, the demands that we'll be showing and kind of just brainstorming together how we can continue to wage our campaign. If folks are interested in joining the waging of the campaign before our calls to action and close out. I realized I didn't introduce myself, so let me do that before I pass it off. But hey, y'all, I'm Kay. I'm the General Secretary of the UC Divest Coalition at UCLA, and I'm also the chairperson of ANACBA in UCLA. Um, so yeah, I'm happy to see everyone here today. If you're able to, like rename yourself to include your organization if you're in any, or if you work with like any particular department or at a workplace. Um, no pressure, don't need to like dox yourself, but just helps us know like who's on the call right now since um social media reaches far and wide. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see everyone. I'll pass to um Kai. Yeah. I also have my other secretaries here on the call, our other secretaries. So you guys want to introduce yourself later.
Hello, I am Kai. I am, I suppose, uh, before I introduce myself or introduce, more about Divest, I think our slides we're slated to do, uh, should we, yes, let us. So, before we begin, I think we kind of have to recognize that, as members of the UCLA community, one way or another, we live a life full of contradictions, and the contradiction that we're living is that we um, are a coalition that fights against imperialism and all of its harmful consequences. But at the same time, because we are at UCLA, we're also beneficiaries of this, and so we need to recognize that. Um, that we are sitting, technically we are not gathered here today on UCLA campus, but all of us in LA, in one way or another, we are really sitting on Tongva land, and this is our moment to recognize that, and recognize that we reject all of the privilege that we receive from colonialism and work against it. Having said that, okay, for those of you who are not in a UC Divest already, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. So we're a coalition of 10 student orgs, along with, student and worker orgs, I should say, on across the UCs, along with a handful of like supporting orgs as well across the UCs. And each of us, and many of us are like cultural orgs, some of us are like political orgs. What brings us together is a recognition that, we as a community, we have our needs and our base, and we care about those issues, and also recognizing that we are at a university that doesn't just not care about its community, but actively harms it. In particular, many of us are affected by the university's material investments in companies and industries that are harmful to us, both directly and indirectly. Just to name one. Oh, okay. This is me. This is me introducing myself. I'm Kai. I'm a graduate student in the math department at UCLA. I am also a member of the Graduate Students for Justice in Palestine, and for me and for my org, the biggest thing on sort of our minds is recognizing over the past year the horrific genocide that's being unfolded and that's unfolding in Palestine, even with the ceasefire, which fragile at best, is something that is directly being carried out by the United States and also being funded by investments in war profiteering companies, massive military transnational corporations, so corporations that produce weapons, corporations that produce technological surveillance for the Zionist state, and these things, while they seem like a remote, governmental thing, is also a thing that our university is spending our hard-earned money as workers on this campus, as students paying tuition, as teachers providing education, spending this money to harm us and our communities. People, members of divest organizations in particular, over the last quarter, several hardworking grad students from the UCLA Rank and File Coalition and several more have spent a lot of effort doing research into exactly what kind of investments the UC has. And so this takes us to our main demands as UC Divest. Here are four big corporations. The UC, of course, has a very large investment portfolio. The product of this research is that it's sort of distilled maybe four big targets for divestment. Starting with Blackstone, this is a long-time divestment target. This is a corporation that a real estate, I think, corporation that is particularly egregious for land grabs and not just like abusing land, but also in the context of the UC, playing with the housing market to the extent of creating much of the housing crisis in the LA area, including rent burdening both students and workers. BlackRock is one of the largest investment companies or investment firms, I should say, funds in the weapons and military corporations that I mentioned earlier. And here are two other interesting ones that are sort of cropping up maybe in arguably more recent years. Sequoia Capital is a company with primarily technological investments, very big in big tech, and also lately sort of has its fingers deep in. So the question, let me answer this question real quick. So there's Blackstone and there's BlackRock. Blackstone, oh, never mind. You know what? You talk in chat. I will talk about Sequoia. So Sequoia, and I will also try to keep it brief because this is not. Sequoia is has massive investments in particular, the big ones these days is AI firms and other like lucrative big tech products. This also includes, I think, cryptocurrency as well as I want to say surveillance. We'll find that many of these issues are very intertwined. That several of the companies that Sequoia like invests in as as part of its technological advances are also deeply tied to military applications. The surveillance that is being tested out in Palestine is also the surveillance that is being used at home on Americans, on our own people. So, and then finally, ExxonMobil is a name. It's a household fossil fuels name. It is also one of the most irresponsible, fossil fuel companies. It Not to go into detail, which I can't honestly provide, but has both directly and indirectly heavy impact on the LA fires as well. It is also important because ExxonMobil, along with other fossil fuel companies, have been on the divest target before, and UC has, at one point in its history, proudly boasted about having divested from fossil fuels into clean energy, and yet, as of a few years ago, has reinvested in fossil fuels. Okay, so that's where we are. That's the divest priority list of this quarter, I guess, or year. The major weapons manufacturers is definitely a demand, but I mean, can someone help answer? I don't have a good answer.
Oh, the question to the major weapons manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
At this moment, we haven't actually. One of our campaigns that we take up as a member of the Resist US-led War Network is actually cut ties with war profiteers campaign, which includes like any and all ties to war profiteering. For us, we channel it mainly through the regions because they're the decision-making body that are controlling where the funds are going. Um, but our school also has partnerships with, for example, like Boeing, with Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. At this moment in time, we don't have targets for those transnational, like major weapons manufacturers or defense contractors at this moment. But that is something that, the demands can always change if it is shifting for um, what is like strategic at any given time. But yeah, and then the UC also has indirect investments in those same companies, as he has said in the chat, and index funds like BlackRock. So not direct investments.
Okay. I'm over time. Let me try to be brief. But the other important thing is we're not just asking the university like to take its money out of things. What matters is that we're here for the community, and we're asking the university to use its money for its actual purpose, which is to address the needs of its students and its teachers and its workers. Um, so I believe this is the next slide. Um, Here are other demands on the university, not just to divest, but also to reinvest by way of meal plans, which have seen like raises. I wouldn't know because I'm a grad student, but this is what I hear over the last quarter. Housing crisis, which is always a problem. Healthcare and health insurance, which one is lacking, and two is something that the university is like actively cutting, as well as things that the university charges fees for that has to be remitted every single time. Education, both for professors, but also as a teaching assistant who doesn't get paid enough to live. These are, and of course all of our like campus facility workers who do the hard work of keeping the school running. Um, so these are our demands.
Yay, thank you so much, Kai. Yes, yeah. So that is kind of like a brief overview of the Divest campaign. Much more like detailed to go into, of course, but yeah, I think that's a brief way to kind of introduce who we are and what we're fighting for right now. But yeah, we want to do a political situation around basically like what's going on right now, right? We're all experiencing a climate crisis that is not, just a climate crisis, but it's a crisis of state neglect and capitalism, imperialism, all these things that have come together to create, yeah, the crisis that we're in right now. Yeah, so briefly, we're just going to share a bit of what we've kind of learned about what folks' conditions are right now, kind of in and around the UC, yeah, throughout this, yeah, just in the past week or so, 2 weeks. But yeah, basically, there's been, as folks know, tons of kind of like mismanaged situation by the university around the fires, right? So, beginning on Wednesday of last week, even after the smoke had been, you could see it from campus, and it had been, blowing in the wind and stuff like that towards campus and et cetera for like about a day by then. The UC, released statements saying that the air quality was good. Using their own like metrics and stuff like that when like many other metrics say that the air quality was like extremely hazardous or very poor, and also like neither of those metrics also measure for things like lead and asbestos that were in the air due to the fact that this is not just like trees burning but also cars and houses and things like that. So yeah, they were kind of giving information that the air quality was good and thus it was safe to be on campus, which was incorrect. And then obviously there was a slowness to cancel classes, communicate evacuation plans, things like that. We didn't see a cancellation of classes until late Wednesday, by which time like a good amount of people had already begun to evacuate. And then we didn't see a cancellation for the next week until over the weekend. And this was obviously problematic. I mean, by the time that classes had been canceled for the next week onwards, I believe the Hill had already 2/3 of residents on the Hill had already left campus, right? So the university was slow enough to create evacuation plans that it left students to have to figure out their own way away from the fires and away from West LA and things like that, Westwood. And that doesn't account for obviously like workers and working people who were still called into work the next day, like professors and grad students and a lot of other administrative workers and stuff like that were worked from home, but a lot of service workers, campus workers, whether they were student or career workers, were made to come into work, right? So yeah, I'm in the student labor. Oh wait, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm also the organizational development secretary of Divest and the education secretary of the Student Labor Advocacy Project. But yeah, oh well, yes. But yes, SLAP in the last week has been doing a lot of kind of on the ground stuff, going to campus and talking to workers about what their conditions have been, as well as doing outreach to student workers and seeing what is going on campus, right? And we were learning that career workers were not being given PPE when they were coming into work. They were not given paid leave. Oh, thank you. Yes, appreciate the feedback. Yes, they were not given paid leave, right, to be able to stay home from work if they felt unsafe. And like on the other hand, there were some folks who needed hours and stuff like that, which would have been solved by paid leave, but whose hours were cut. Without proper communication and stuff like that. Overall, pretty much every single worker we've talked to, whether they're in residential life, whether they're in dining or facilities like janitorial and what's the word? Camp, facilities like groundskeeping and etc. Or in housing or just all over campus. A main thread has definitely been a lack of communication about what working conditions would be. And a lot of employers saying things like just wait for the Bruin alerts and once we get kind of top-down communication from the university, you'll know if you're coming into work or not. So very slow communication because of that, right? Because we're waiting for communication from the chancellor. And etc. So people were, getting called in or out of work with like hours notice, and then yeah, not being given PPE if they were coming to work, and again working in terrible air quality and etc. On an empty campus, right? Like cafes were open, like on days where there was like no students going to classes on campus, right? So those workers did not need to be called into campus, but they also should have been given paid leave or hazard pay and stuff like that to stay home when they would have been working otherwise. Um, yeah, so just a lot of inconsistency with working conditions and things like that, right? And then, yeah, there are also, oh wait, okay, maybe we can go to the next slide. Yes, and then today, there was a town hall that the chancellor and the other like UC administration and stuff like that hosted, where they gave information on the fires. Most of the information that they gave, like it was very much giving this could have been an email, but it was pretty outdated. Could have been sent out about a week ago. That's when it would have been helpful, but for now it's not very helpful at all. But one of the things that was fascinating about this town hall was that the town didn't really get to speak in the hall really much at all. And because questions, you only had like the Q&A option. And then even if you submitted questions, they wouldn't even show the questions unless they planned to answer them. Divest members and stuff like that mobilized to this town hall and were like, unsurprisingly, none of our questions were answered really, right? So we were asking things about the air quality, about the wildfire relief fund and things like that. Wait, sorry, I'm going back one more thing because I forgot to mention about that. But another funny thing that the UC has done is basically have workers support each other throughout this situation, right? So we have a wildfire relief fund that the UC has been setting out in communications. We highly encourage, students, workers, family members, et cetera, to donate to this fund that will then be redistributed to folks who have lost their homes, et cetera, right? Hilarious, given, remember, a couple slides ago, we went over the billions of dollars that the UC has in, AI, in weapons manufacturing, in fossil fuels, et cetera, right? And a giant rainy day fund that they have been sitting on for years and refusing to spend, right? I feel like biggest fires in LA history is kind of a rainy day fund, is, worth a rainy day fund, bit of spending. But yeah, they're asking folks to donate to each other, right? So faculty have a fund where they can donate to other faculty who've lost their homes or et cetera, things like that. Workers are expected to donate their accrued vacation time to their coworkers who need paid leave off and don't have, sick pay or vacation time that they can take off. Right. And then other workers they said if workers have lost their homes, you can have discounted rates in UCLA owned hotels. So not even like a free like stay in a UCLA owned hotel. You have to pay, you have to pay to stay in a UCLA hotel, but you get like a bit of a discount, right? So that's some wild business. Anyway, so we're asking questions about all of those things in this town hall. One thing that I thought was funny was someone asked about, the fact that the AQI measure, they were saying air quality is good. So we were like, okay, well, there's lead and asbestos in the air. Is there going to be PPE? And they said, you can go to the PPE store. And then we looked up the PPE store in that link and it does not exist. They closed it. So things like that are hilarious. Yeah, and a lot of these questions they ignored or said we've handled it or it'll get sent out in a Bruin alert or etc. And yeah, so just like really lack of genuine communication with the people, a genuine need to actually solve the problems that people are facing, whether or not at the hands of the UC, right? Like still the UC not really offering real genuine support to the community, right? Yes, and then I don't think we have a slide for this, but obviously these fires fit into a much larger picture of societal issues, right? That like both created this fire and have exacerbated the effects of it for people in LA. Yeah, UC Divest like is also in community with or helps to support the Westwood Mutual Aid. Westwood Mutual Aid, I guess. Program kind of, I don't know, yeah, mutual aid and stuff like that. And so some of us went to frequently go to like encampments and stuff like that to donate essential supplies and things like that. And we went to the Cotner encampment or an encampment like nearby Westwood, and they're experiencing sweeps, like multiple police sweeps, right? Even during fires that like are creating like a larger homelessness crisis in LA and stuff like that due to this climate crisis. And so, Gavin Newsom called in the National Guard to police looting and et cetera, instead of providing like genuine support to the people of LA. yeah, Karen Bass, has been not giving any, yeah, genuine support to the people and stuff like that. And, yeah, there's been a lot of people talking about how they defunded the fire department. And even besides that, just really, yeah, exacerbating the housing crisis over the last few years, like, etc. So, yeah, and then obviously, we know that the climate crisis has been accelerated greatly due to the ongoing genocide in Palestine that has, where like more munitions have been dropped in a year than have ever been dropped in human history in like, during World War II, etc. And of course, as many of us know, I'm sure there was a ceasefire that was announced yesterday. But as Kai mentioned, this does not mean that the struggle is over. That does not mean that Palestine is liberated yet. And so all of these struggles are extremely interconnected, right? Our struggle for divestment and for weakening the US empire and stuff like that from within the belly of the beast is really important right now. And we see how, the conditions of people abroad, whether in Palestine, the Philippines, etc., is directly connected to our own conditions here. And that our ruling class enemies, right? Like the chancellor of the UC, the regents of the UC are some of the most powerful people in California, arguably more powerful than the governor politically of California, let alone the world, right? They're CEOs of worldwide companies and etc. And so we share the same class enemies that are harming UC students are the same people who are harming, yeah, folks in Palestine, etc. around the world. So yeah, the struggle is very important right now. I would love if folks, if there's anything that I missed in terms of conditions that we as students, workers, community members, etc., have been experiencing in this past period, please sound off in the chat. I know that there's a lot of stuff that, we haven't been able to cover that we don't know yet, and that we're going to continue to kind of learn throughout this period. But yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of kind of what's going on right now. And we're about to open into a conversation where we can discuss more. But yeah, if anybody would like to share initial thoughts. Yes. Yes. Okay, I think I'm passing it to Kay? Erin? Someone.
Yes, thank you, Ty. Can you also hear me okay? Okay, cool. Yes, the it'll be both me and Kai facilitating this section, but for the next like 40-ish minutes, we'll just talk with each other and hear what folks have been experiencing. Um, a lot of what we face as the community, as students, some workers who are also here and other community members have already been bearing the brunt of, UCLA's neglect and really like state neglect because the UCLA is like a public university. And the wildfire and natural disaster, as natural as we want to call it, when these winds were anticipated to be the most destructive and violent winds in over a decade, has only exacerbated, the effects that people are already feeling from um, the neglect that we've been facing. So um, we, yeah, just want to hear from folks if you've been personally affected by the wildfires and how you're feeling about the way UCLA responded or even failed to respond um, in a timely or really adequate manner at all. And what protections, if you feel like you needed any to keep safe at UCLA during this crisis. I know a lot of us are actually no longer in the area because we've evacuated, but there are a lot of folks who actually couldn't have afforded to evacuate, like we heard earlier, workers, out of state and international students who I don't even know if they were offered any resources during this time to like evacuate because where else would they go? So yeah, I'm open for folks to just um, speak. Feel free to like drop in the chat or raise a hand or just unmute.
Hello. I guess I could go. I just wanted to share something in the chat that my colleagues and I developed to call out of work. And just some background, I am the UCLA FDCWA chair for lab workers at UCLA, and I also am the director of Lab Rats, which is an inter-union caucus for lab workers and researchers. And presently, like especially in our really isolated labs, satellite places, and places for where places like DLAM where people process the lab animals and do animal husbandry. Supervisors have been really, some supervisors, especially those, have been really awful about making employees still come to work. And if one person does it, they single that person out. If they, if they're in other places, they'll single anyone out who tries. We've had people who've had to go to occupational health for like a workers' comp injury from this because the smoke in the air made their breathing issues worse at work and have had to take leave because of that. But we put together this letter. I don't know if it's too late to use this now, but it could possibly help you all if you want to use this. And we are using it to call out of work en masse and demand PTO.
That's great to hear. And thank you for sharing this resource. Thank you for joining us today and sharing that. It's great to hear that folks are already like taking up collective action to address the immediate responses. Um, but yeah, that's like really terrible that folks are having to get like workers' comp for things that could have been totally avoidable. Um, yeah, of
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
course. Thanks for coming. Um, yeah. Also, like if folks want to share any reflections on the political situation or we just heard, or a little bit further in the discussion, we'll also hear about reflections on the campaign and demands that we heard earlier. But yeah.
The Disabled Student Union, I just wanted to say it has been trying to start a clean air initiative um this past quarter and a half-ish, and it would give students tools to protect against COVID and poor air quality, including smoke, like including advocating for updated HVAC and adequate air filtration across campus and housing. And I think it would be amazing to like have an increase in pushing for this right now, especially for campus. I mean, especially for students and workers who can't leave campus. And then especially since the air quality is so bad with toxins in the air from burned buildings and cars, including asbestos and lead, it's dangerous for anyone, especially disabled students, to be on campus. So like with the announcement that we're going to return in person next week, I was curious if we like there's a potential for like advocating to the academic senate to like fight for a hybrid option, especially since the air quality is so bad.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Do you? Sorry, not to put you on the spot. I feel like this is something that like we should keep talking about. Like that I'd like to. I don't know. I feel like I'd like to put a little bit of energy into working with you on this campaign and see how that works. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I think that's like I think it's doable. I don't know where we'd course it through. I guess it would be through like you mentioned the academic senate, but I think that's a completely reasonable and fair demand to push for an online like hybrid option with the return to in-person instruction, given like the health implications. And it seems like UCLA admin is really trying to gaslight us into being like, the air quality will be fine. It'll be okay. the AQI is fine, even though it doesn't factor in like the toxic particulates. Potentially with support from USEC as well, I could see us like, yeah, partner like gathering mass support for it to like really push it forward. Yeah, yeah. Resolution. It could be like a resolution. It could also be like petitioning, gathering mass support for it, and presenting like the petition as well to show that it's not just like a group of people, but like depending on however many people can rally behind it, be like, this is actually something the community's really wanting to push for. Um, yeah, we'll definitely need to be continuing like some of our member organizations with like contributing to Westwood Mutual Aid, distributing PPE there, or creating care packages as well to distribute like the good quality masks. I can see that being an ongoing thing, given like even after the wildfires, the bad air quality will persist. Yeah.
Hey, can I make a couple comments about the demands?
Yes,
I
please.
think I really agreed with like everything you're saying about the continued importance to be in solidarity with Gaza throughout the ceasefire and to have pressure that there's not further exploitation of Palestine and all of that. And I mean, I think the good thing about the demands that you laid out is like they're really simple, because I think that's important. There's still a lot of people, like I talked to faculty members that still don't understand what divestment means, what are the demands. So having it be really simple is really important to explain it to people. But there are a couple of things in particular, as I was saying about the weapons manufacturers. I think, right, war and along with like the fossil fuel companies are one of the major drivers of the climate catastrophe as well. And so, not just as a target for putting pressure to stop genocide, but also it ties in with the climate stuff. So I think it's really would be important to have weapons manufacturers such as the ones you mentioned, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and many of the other big ones as part of the demands. And then the other aspect is like I feel like BlackRock's a little bit strange to have, because it seems like a bit of a misunderstanding that BlackRock's not really one of the big managers of the UC funds. And then like the fossil fuels they claim to have divested from, but of course it's also really important to be holding them accountable in these demands, and they really haven't been transparent. But yeah, Blackstone and Sequoia are really shitty, so that also makes sense. Sorry if that was a little bit all over the place.
No, I think that's great. Some of these things, I mean, this paper that is still a draft is like 70 pages long, and I took a skim through it, but I think we're all sort of like still working on understanding it, picking it apart, and sort of digesting exactly what sort of specific angles and companies and industries direct and indirect investments and that stuff. But absolutely, it is true that all of these industries with ties to genocide are also the same industries, carrying out a devastating impact on the environment. And while it's said that like the fire itself is a regular thing that is part of the climate, that is not preventable. What is preventable is the circumstances and the way in which we handle it, and being responsible stewards of nature. Anything? Oh yeah, yes. Also, yeah, we are. Asia mentioned in the chat we're hoping to have a teach-in on the the investment findings soon. There's like it's a whole mess, like, gathered from sifting through like SEC filings or whatever by the university. But that, and also the paper, if I understand, is getting published in, well, publicized in, I think like a month or so is the rough estimate that I remember. But maybe there's even someone in this town hall who has worked on it who can tell us more. But in any case, any other thoughts?
I think Benjamin is hand
Yes,
raised.
Benjamin.
Sorry.
You're
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this. I'm appreciating the current conversation, and just wanted to sort of chime in a bit. I definitely have a lot of appreciation for all of the research and research labor that people are conducting, and I think it's that's all really necessary. And I guess I have had some like concerns as well about the demands and how they're expressed. I think that like and this is all coming from a place of wanting like to be able to, I guess, like make a demand that is so like or like like unequivocally like the right thing, and something that can really build a lot of mass support in a way that I think some of the like ins and outs of like investment information and stuff doesn't necessarily do. Like that doesn't always sort of like emotionally resonate with people. So like I'm very compelled by, and I know other folks are aware of this too, but like the divestment guide that was put together by the American Friends Service Committee, and I look at their guide on divesting for Palestinian rights, for example, and it says universities should adopt an investment policy statement with a commitment to divest from companies that consistently, knowingly, and directly enable or facilitate genocide, apartheid, or other war crimes and crimes against humanity. And it's like, and then commit to a process and report on the implementation. But it's like the idea of creating the ethical investment policy statement, like that's kind of the demand. And then like all the research is really important and necessary, but comes in when it's like as far as like screening essentially. But like when I think about what, like, to me the idea of like an ethical investment policy statement, like I find that really, it's a little abstract perhaps, but like I think gives a lot of room for the Divest Coalition to make a demand that can really get like, yeah, a lot of people on board. And I think everything that like all the, specific companies or asset managers that have been named kind of go into that. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to put that forward. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, I think these are good considerations. Um, for the sake of the town hall being more catered toward like the wildfire response and seeing how people are being affected by it, I actually think those are really good inputs to consider for like the campaign. So I'm interested if we could like, I know you're also in JVP, if we could do a sit down, maybe even like full coalition tacticizing in the near future. But I think these are good considerations, especially seeing like what people are willing to rally around. But and I see a hand as well. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to share a little bit about what I've learned from talking to some like students and workers on campus as well. Some of it has already been shared in the political situation, but just like in particular, I have gotten to talk to a lot of or like a few of the workers who are at the Ronald Reagan Hospital, and I'm sure like folks have seen during this time that the hospitals haven't stopped operations at all and are fully operable. And some of the departments were like getting a lot less busy. People were like canceling en masse, and they just had a lot less work on their hands because of being so near to the evacuation zones in some departments. However, like for a lot of them, like work was just continuing as usual. And what I had found was like there was actually a discrepancy between like hospital professionals, so people who worked directly in healthcare, and the other workers who were like the janitors, the people who were doing food service at the hospital, not getting PPE while hospital professionals were getting PPE. And a lot of these workers, a lot of the workers and even students who go to UCLA live like north of our campus, like closer to the Palisades fire, have to travel through the 405 freeway to get to work, which I'm sure folks know, like the 405 is fully like in an evacuation warning zone. And like while this is happening, folks are really sharing that they're not getting any updates from the university at all. And for folks who have been able to evacuate, they're actually like a lot of people are evacuating to areas that are still really smoggy, still like even closer to the fires in some cases. And I just find it like really outrageous that the UC is like telling us to like crowdfund and to like the grassroots organizing that's already been happening when they have like billions of dollars to support their workers. And even hearing that they were offering like hazard pay to RAs, like fully like a week into the fires starting, while like other workers don't have hazard pay. Like it really just shows that they could have done this the whole time, but they just don't want to.
I'm also kind of curious. Like, right, there's the announcement that just came in, what, a couple hours ago, that the plan is to go back to in-person teaching next week. Almost as if things are back to normal. And I'm wondering, I mean, my one question is like, it feels a bit odd. Like on the one hand, like I've been lucky enough to not have been directly affected by the fires. And so it feels like, oh yeah, we can, no more COVID Zoom class. Let's go back in person. It also feels like this is probably kind of a like easy thing to do for someone in this like position of privilege. I feel like people who were more directly impacted by the fires. I mean, not even to mention the lasting like open questions about the air quality, but even like that it's like returning to school in a week's notice is going to be difficult, is my sense. So like, I mean, not asking someone to like, oh yeah, like I'm, I don't, but like I'm curious, what are people's, what are the vibes? What are the vibes on this? And also, when it comes to being back in person, besides the the Clean Air Initiative, any other things that sort of, I don't know, are on your mind that we as a coalition should be thinking about and can help push to make that, return more accessible, more doable, more livable.
Yes, Erin, I think.
Hey, I'm not sure if this is like totally related to that exactly. It was kind of like a more long-term thing about the response to the fires, which is also probably connected to other points of the campaign and regarding how it's going to affect the housing crisis in LA, which is already really bad, but you know, having so many houses destroyed is going to basically make it worse. And at the same time, the mayor has kind of gone back on her campaign promises of affordable housing, such as there's like Venice Dell affordable housing that she's been blocking essentially, that was going on for years, and because a bunch of rich people didn't want it in their neighborhood, she decided it wasn't going to happen. So right, I feel like that's going to be a really important thing to be addressing, and is also relevant in the context of how it will be impacted by the fires, and probably it already is.
Yeah, I think that just reminded me, not that it was ever out of our minds, but like the LA Olympics being at UCLA in 2028, the amount of like mass devastation that has happened with the wildfires and like the price gouging that's going to happen coming out of this, especially with, yeah, I think it's tied to like our Blackstone target with like um the rent burdening and such. So I think that's even like, I think we're still trying to figure out ways we can materialize the fight for like affordable housing, but that is a really important point for us to be attentive to during this time because, yeah, Kai is saying there's a group of urban planning folks trying to collect and analyze some data on exactly how severe the price gouging is in LA. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I asked a good question earlier too about um what is something we can push forward um to, you know, UCLA administration, even the chancellor, to make the transition easier. We already had a suggestion to push for a demand to like um have the option for online hybrid classes in the return to in-person instruction. Um, yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me read some of the comments in the chat as well. Maya said um, their staff and alumni at UCLA, their friends, both student and staff, and them from San Gabriel Valley have been running around LA supporting people we know. We each know multiple people whose houses have burned down. I've been taking time off because answering emails is just unconceivable right now. Yes, thank you for coming as well. But yeah, I'll continue letting people, you know, just simmer. If you don't even have like a fully fleshed out thought, feel free to just like unmute and we can hash it through together. Yes, Ella.
Hi, I'm Ella in SLAP, and I also work at the library at UCLA. And kind of the question about like what protections were needed during a crisis got me thinking about probably if other people work in like academic offices as like staff or whatever, they've gotten this email too. But UCLA sends this thing that's like kind of talking about the response to the fires, and they have like a headline that's like catastrophic leave, but it's not that they're providing it, it's that they're asking us to donate our accrued sick time or like paid vacation for like full-time employees to people who were like directly affected by the fires, which I think is just so like gross, kind of in the same way that like crowdfunding when they have billions of dollars is like um you can't even give paid time off to people who lost their entire lives, and you're asking us to give up this time that we accrue at like a very minimal rate too. Like I've worked there almost 2 years and I have like 4 hours. So yeah, that's just what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think actually I might let someone from SLAB speak on this more. But like one of the big concerns right now is the back pay for like workers or other like working students who weren't able to actually get paid if they were unable to come into work during like the move to online instruction. Um, because that's like loss of livelihood, that's loss of income for a lot of people that has a big effect on whether or not they're able to actually pay for like rent this month. So, um, oh yeah, Marina said in the chat, I've worked at the study for the past 3 years and we don't even get any paid time off for sick hours. Exactly. I know Slapper's got something to say about that. California has special labor exemptions in the Constitution of California. Yeah. So thanks for joining us, Benjamin. Yeah, slappers. That's what we call members of SLAP. Asia.
Yeah, I can share. Yeah, I used to work at the study. I went to the study just to check in on my old coworkers and see how they're doing. And yeah, I was talking to one of my coworkers. He's a career worker, and he was telling me how he lives. His home is right in the middle in the valley of the 405 and the 101. There's fire on either side of him, and what he has is two freeways keeping his home from, catching on fire. And he was too scared to even try to like go home that night, so he had to go to his dad's place instead. But he didn't have a car. Because UCLA doesn't pay you enough to be able to, when he got into a car accident, UCLA doesn't pay you enough to be able to like afford much besides your basic necessities, if that. So, I offered to give him a ride, and while we were driving home, he was just telling me about um how he's so mad because, the management said like we can't tell you, we can't promise you anything about if this week off, well, your dining hall is closed, so you have no choice but to not work. It's not like, like you don't, your dining hall is closed, you have nowhere to work, but also we're not going to pay you for that week without work. Um, it's out of your hands. And I guess it just makes me mad at how the people most affected are like the hourly workers, not the salaried workers who make more money, because like 1 week without work can be the difference between paying your rent or not. Um, and yeah, also just that the university has enough money to give that and is just choosing not to.
Yeah, I'll just thank you, Asia. I think we have another person from SLAP. I'll just read one more thing in the chat. Marina also said when there was a COVID spike and everyone was getting sick, they still had to come into work even if they tested positive 3 days after symptoms began. That's crazy. Oh yeah, the parking is really expensive. That's also something that we're seeing. Like workers aren't really guaranteed parking and they have to pay $400 for a single parking ticket. And the commute is already long. So like what option do they have? Um, I think that's a major thing that we could push for to like immediately help relieve some of the burden that folks are feeling. But I'll let the person with their hand up speak. Yeah.
Hello, this is Mateo from Slap, and I just want to talk about like my workplace. I work at the Hilltop Shop in ASUCLA. It's an ASUCLA workplace, and it's just been really frustrating. Like, it's very like there doesn't seem like there's any like rules or anything they're following. It's kind of just like, okay, we're closing like randomly. It's completely like up in the air whether or not like you're getting paid for your work or not. Like, for example, we closed like Thursday and Friday, like right off the bat, but only if you were supposed to work on Thursday, then you'll get paid. But like there's not really anything actually like differentiating the 2 days. It's just like it doesn't really make any sense. And like I know a lot of my coworkers are frustrated about that. And yeah, and like it's also frustrating when like other workplaces like they're not ASUCLA, like the libraries are getting paid and they're closed, which is a good thing. but it's like, why doesn't that extend to us, you know? I mean, the reason is because we bring money to the UC and libraries don't, but it's just like, I don't know. I know there's a lot of coworkers and like myself are agitated around like those conditions and stuff.
Yeah, sorry to slap dominate the convo hella, but I guess just corroborating that thing about like the extreme inconsistency of like what workers are experiencing and stuff like that around like just across campus. Yeah, a lot of the camp like workers. Okay, we tried to go to like campus to distribute like supplies and stuff like that and catch workers at their clock in, but basically like no workers clocked in or out, which gives us a sense that yeah, like career workers like on campus have been either consolidated to other places like the hospitals or yes, or to the Hill or etc., or are like not like being called into work, but obviously also as people are saying like not getting paid for that, and then yeah, like library workers are getting paid time off but other workers aren't. Some housing workers were getting PPE, but then like you know RAs and like career workers, dining hall workers, etc., were not. Huge discrepancy in like who's getting called into work, who's not getting called into work. We were seeing that what's it called? Like certain cafes were being given the option to work at the hospitals for people who needed the hours and were willing to come into work, but then other cafes weren't. And like one could even make the claim that like the line is based on like which workplaces have had more agitation in them before, but that's me conspiring or whatever. But then also I believe it was RAs who were saying, I don't want to speak for y'all because I know some of y'all are like literally in this meeting, but I think an RA was mentioning that their supervisors told them in a meeting that the UC didn't even start to sorry, the UC didn't even start to make an evacuation plan until the Palisades fire had already reached Bel Air. So like I think it just goes to show like they were completely unprepared for this crisis, which is wild because they, you know, they were prepared to shut down campus within 2 hours when we had like an action that didn't even get to happen because people were arrested in a parking lot. Anyways, but okay, I'm going all over the place. But basically, yeah, like they're just the lack of planning and which then leads to like all of these inconsistencies because different management is making decisions on like what's gonna happen. But yeah, okay. But they're incompetent and evil.
Yes, please, everyone, keep sharing your frustrations or ideas for action. This actually is reminding me as well of the campus safety. Is it the task force? Is that the correct name for it? The campus safety task force? The Office of Emergency Management. Earlier today, Julio Feng was like, before he sent out the decision on like the return to in-person classes, he was like, I'm going to consult with the Office of Emergency Management. Campus Safety Task Force was also established in the middle of all the protests last spring. So I'm also just curious about like what kind of money is going into that. Because they were quick to cancel classes in the middle of protests, and then it took them 2 days and a fire already within view of dorm residents' windows to respond. And it was like the same, I guess they're getting the same kind of input from the Office of Emergency Management. So like I don't know if there's something there about perhaps demanding transparency. I think that's what we tried to do today, and people like we still weren't offered any transparency. Like, what are the levels of consultation before they make a call to let people know what decisions they're making?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the I mean, not just the fire response like transparency, but also like when they mention the whole like, hey, donate to this fund to help with fire relief. And it's not just like, okay, first you have so much money, why don't you spend the university's money providing, but also like yeah, hey, donate to this you know, this little fund to help with relief. And then I just wanted to ask them, okay, let's say I do donate to that fund. How do I know what you're doing with that money? Like, how do I know that you're actually using that money for fire relief? And that is a question that they did not answer. Transparency.
Yeah, I don't know. I see like a couple folks are agitated, but I don't know if this is something that is like maybe resonating with people. Like I think we at least deserve to know where our money's going. Something as simple as that. But yeah, how are folks feeling about like the conversation that's going on right now? Hmm, cool. I think something we forgot to mention at the beginning, before we maybe like head into the last portion of this meeting to synthesize the discussion so far, um, of like the next steps and how we can take action together. Um, One major thing that Divest is planning on is mobilizing to the UC Regents meeting at UCLA in March. Um, we always mobilize to the UC Regents meetings that they have at UCLA. It's kind of a given that anytime they swing by, they meet like every other month, I believe, at different locations. But every time they swing by, given that they are really the 26 people who can get money moving fast across all the UCs, we are already marking that as like kind of our big campaign peak. And so we are also wanting to engage the community, the wider community in the build up to that mobile, whatever it ends up being, whatever kind of action it is, um, to already be inviting people to prepare for that with us, so we can make it big, right? So they always expect us, but we want to make it really big. Um, so I think um, the conversation so far, the different demands that we're kind of um, fleshing out in our conversation, I think can also be helping us build up that momentum to March and also in the immediate for the response to the wildfires because we do want to actually improve like people's conditions right now. Um, so maybe some excitement, sneak peek for that. Um, I will then kind of move us to like next steps. These are already the calls to action, but synthesizing the conversation so far. Um, I've been taking notes. Some of the big things are the demand for a hybrid or online option when we return to in-person instruction next week and ongoing because we know that the um, health implications of the wildfires will continue to exist even after the wildfires are gone. Um, there was also Ember was here earlier talking about DSU, and we also heard from Slap, but supporting and uplifting some of the ongoing initiatives of different organizations, namely the Clean Air Initiative, and I think we didn't necessarily hash out like what exactly, but ideas floated were like a petition or a resolution or both, um, to get it passed through like student government, also get it like the mass support for it as a demand that people are pushing for. Um, and also uplifting SLAP's petition for hazard pay for student workers. Other big things floated were price of parking, which is actually affecting like everyone who attends school or works at the UC. Um, back pay, and then lastly, transparency with um, the handling of the emergency fund and also just in general, like the money that is going into the campus safety and Office of Emergency Management. Let me know if that was everything, but I think there's possibly some like more fleshing out and tacticizing how we'll carry out those different things and what are like some of the more immediate like different demands versus which are the ones that we can maybe foresee as like long term that we're pushing even as we're building up to March. But yeah, any other things that were mentioned? Um, I think in terms of like how we'll plan this out, um, perhaps like I think there are a lot of Divest members on this call. Um, so I think we can bring this back to like our organizations and steering, and maybe do like some full coalition tacticizing and like planning how we'll actually implement and organize the people around these demands, right? These are demands for UCLA, the chancellor, for the regents, but we also know that in order to uh, pressure them and really make them feel the heat is we have to organize the people, the masses of people, the thousands and thousands of students and workers and faculty and community members to actually carry it through. So yeah, I'll mute and see if anyone has any other additions right now. And I see some stuff going on in the chat too, but I'll read those in a second. Um, in the chat, SCS said hybrid classes for all of week 3, I think, is an urgent demand since the announcement of campus reopening came out today. Thank you for plugging the petition. Yeah, I'm thinking like this could be something relatively easy, like email blast and phone barrage to UCLA admin to push for hybrid classes. And I think it was also mentioned the academic senate, which I'm not as sure about, but we could also, yeah, thoughts? Hypothetically, USAC already drafted a letter to the academic senate council demanding for online classes for week 2 and 3. I'm sure folks would be down for a hybrid classes demand. Coming in through, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure folks would be down to sign on and support. Any other inputs on like next steps?
I have a thought, less on the tip of the fires and more on the tip of the Divest campaign. Um, I guess just for everybody who's not already in UC Divest, I really encourage you to join the coalition and join the campaign. I think what we're seeing is like this is one instance of like a larger systemic problem with, yeah, the UC showing what it prioritizes, which is continuing to maintain its profits in operations as regular rather than actually caring for the people, even at the cost of deadly genocidal investments. So what we really need to do is like actually challenge that and win divestment and win reinvestment. So highly urge folks to join. And then I think another thing that came up throughout this conversation was like the conversation around demands and like what are we actually demanding divestment from? What should that look like? What are going to be our primary demands? And it's something that we're in the works of developing. And for those on this call that are members of UC Divest, would love to schedule a follow-up full coalition meeting with all members of all Divest organizations to actually look at our demands together and think through them and flesh them out more and develop them and make sure we're really like united that this is what we're fighting for, so that we can move in step and actually, yeah, get closer to divestment and win.
Ooh, also, if you represent an organization or if you are part of an organization that is not already a part of the Divest Coalition, also feel free to talk to us. Like that is.
Yes. Sorry, we didn't edit these slides. We were still deliberating if the foam barrage was an option, so it has a question mark, but ooh, lab rats join
Ooh.
UC Divest. We'll get in touch. We'll
Also,
get in
that is
touch.
that is such a fun name. I got it. Like Slappers is pretty fun, but like Lab Rats is I don't know. It's a little threatening.
Oh, thank you. I mean, slap's threatening. Slap's pretty threatening too. But it stands for Laboratory Researchers, Analysts, Techs, and Students. So it's basically everyone who's not a PI, and we have lots of fun swag. So here's a not shameless organization plug, but I just opened an Etsy store for swag actually. So one sec.
Please plug.
Plug away.
Really good.
Boop.
This includes like interns as well?
So anyone who works in a lab space or a research space who's affected by kind of like the ins and outs of that kind of workplace and funding is someone who we consider to be a lab rat. And then thank you. Yeah, and right now, I created this group because in our union we're having some major issues at our chapter, just like on the down low. Oh, thanks, yeah. And I do custom pronoun badges as well, if anyone wants one. I make them at home, and I can also like teach people how to make buttons, like it's a thing. Yeah. So, okay, I went on like three tangents there. Yeah, so our union at UCLA was not supporting lab workers and researchers anywhere near as much as it should have been, and we were like not organized and shit. And so I just like I like tried to reform from the inside, and then I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make my own group, and we're gonna have like everything's gonna be orange because it's a beautiful color, and yeah, so that's what happened.
Yes. Sounds like we can.
Yeah. So I don't know if so I'm probably also Allie's on this call. Like there's a bunch of us. Like the grad students union, I feel like some of the complaints about like, oh, our union, is supposed to take care of us and like fight for us, that isn't really doing its job of fighting for us, and that's why UCLA rank and file or UC rank and file in general exists.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh, good.
this little Marcus in the grad in UAW 4811 that.
Oh, nice. I would, you know, I would love to get in touch with them because that's kind of the same vibe over here. It's like strictly member run. And because our union right now isn't member run, it's staff run, and I would really love for our chapter to be a group joining UC Divest, but our lead staff member at our campus is a bona fide Zionist, and so is another one of the chairs. And it's just like it's so messed up to go into that space and have staff members, people who we hire with our dues, tell us that divestment is too political of an issue. It's so fucked.
Oh. Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. How do we stay in touch with you? Or are you going to message us?
We have your contact info from the Zoom.
Yeah.
We'll get in touch with all of the attendees. But yes. Oh yeah, email.
And
Nice.
real fast second group plug. We're having a launch lunch at Nick the Greek in Westwood on Sunday, the 26th of January. So that's coming up. And we're doing this to launch what we're calling a steward council. And this is not just for people who are in like lab spaces. This is for people who want to learn how to be a steward. And I reached out to Slap earlier because I really think undergrads should be involved in this. I was a UCLA student back in the day, class of 2013, and I did not learn any of this shit in college. You know, it just felt like a conveyor belt into like the jaws of capitalism after a while. And I like the workplace conditions that we go through in like this freaking institution that calls itself like a world-class institution are absolutely horrifying. And you know, I'm sure you'll learn more, but if you talk to some other people at this event, but I really like for people, even if you're not in a union, even if you're in another union, even if you're like contract worker or just, you know, going to go to grad school or something. Let me write the date here. This is 1/26, Sunday. And the person, so I'm going to be hosting that, and the other host is going to be two of the founding members of UPD who are like not down with how it's like not supporting divestment. And that includes like the former 20-year president of UPD. So this guy knows what he's doing. He's really awesome. And if you have like labor questions and want to meet and like network within the labor community, especially among lab workers and researchers, I'd love for y'all to attend. Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. We'll wrap it up. We'll get in touch for sure. We'll note your interest in joining the coalition. But thank you everyone for the discussion today. I think maybe we can touch base and send out like follow-up emails, messaging on like the next steps that we have brainstormed, and also affirming that we'll have to gather the full coalition to further flesh out the implementation of these different demands. But yeah, some of the calls to action are here. We've already discussed. If you want to join UC Divest, you can join any of our member organizations. I think some links have been dropped, and you can also go to our Instagram at UCLA Divest, where our links are. Can join as an individual joining an organization, or your organization can also apply to join Divest in the coalition. Also wanted to uplift a SLAP student worker petition. We'll also send the slides to folks so you can have access to like this. But yeah, go sign the petition for hazard pay and paid leave for student workers. Thank you, SLAP. And yes, also uplifting our mutual aid efforts at Westwood and LeConte, 2 to 5 p.m. every Friday. So folks will be out there tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's it. But thank you everyone for helping on our town hall today. This won't be the last time we'll be in touch with folks. We hope everyone is staying safe. Yeah, thank y'all. I guess signing off. Bye, thanks for joining us. Oh yeah. Oh man. Asia's message was a bit late, but it's okay. We can send that later. Develop materials for a phone brush and email blast our admin and academic center. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll end the call for everyone.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.
Oh, it's a merge of everyone's names. I didn't realize. I was like, is it just Mateo?
It's Emma, Texas.
Emma, Texas.
Oh my God.
Oh no, I have to hop off. Okay.
Bye, guys.
How do I do this? Oh God. I don't know how to